My name is Bailey Tollan, but I go by Board in the Morgue, and I'm from Kelowna, BC. I am a self-taught artist. I honestly don't remember the first time that I picked up a pen and drew something, so it obviously started within childhood. What I do remember is that I always saw my mom painting and drawing growing up, so I believe I picked up along the way and began to create myself, and eventually became good and saw a talent, and I continued. I started creating art as a way to relax. It was a coping mechanism for me. Anytime that I would feel stressed out, putting my pen to the paper would be an immediate release of any stress that I was feeling. Now I'm creating art to express my creativity and to inspire others to do the same. My mom was definitely the strongest influence that I had to begin with. I always saw her painting and drawing, so obviously I wanted to be just like her and did the exact same. I grew up on a lot of anime and cartoons, so Sailor Moon was a huge influence for me. As you can see in a lot of my artwork, the huge anime looking eyes. There's a lot of anime influences in my artwork. I also grew up loving graffiti and street art. Earthfolk and Gats were big influences for me, and that's how I began sort of the graffiti style anime looking artwork, and that's where a lot of my influence and style comes from. I use pen and paper for my artwork. I haven't transitioned digitally just yet, but I would like to work on that. I use Prismacolor, Artist Loft, Copics pens, and Micron pens. I use an array of sizes for microns between 0.05 to 0.3. For lots of my detail, I'll use a smaller pen, and for more of my thicker, chunkier lines, I'll use a thicker pen. Right now, I'm working on a girl with mushrooms coming out of her face. I'm doing my signature style with the decapitated head with the goo coming from it. That's been a signature style for me for honestly since before I can remember. I'm not sure where the decapitated heads come from, but that is Board in the Morgue. The art that I create the most is my own particular style. I'm not quite sure what that style is called just yet, but it's something that I've rolled with for many of years. I have pictures from work that I've done in high school that had the exact same face, but when you put them side by side with my current artwork, it's the same face, just looks 10 times better. So that's all that there is to it, is practicing. Very rarely do I have an idea and then the outcome is exactly what I pictured in my brain. Oftentimes I don't even plan a background as I'm doing a picture. The background is the aftermath of the picture. So playing is essential, honestly, to my artwork, because I never have a finished outcome in my brain, so I have to play. My creative process starts with an idea. Oftentimes these ideas come to me at inconvenient times when I'm physically not able to put the idea on paper. A lot of times I will have to sit with this idea for an extended period of time until I'm actually able to convey the emotion or the thought or the idea on paper. Because of this time period that I have to wait, the idea doesn't necessarily translate exactly on paper to what the idea was in my brain at the initial time. So there's a lot of room for creative expanding and playing in my mind in the time that I'm waiting to be able to put the idea on paper. My ideas come from a lot of different places. I take a lot of inspiration from folklore, so fairies, mushrooms, goblins, elves, that sort of thing. I also have a background in funeral directing and embalming, so the name Board in the Morgue comes from that background, and a lot of the dark aspects of my drawings have funeral influences in them, but also in a way to make it beautiful and expressive. I did not always want to be an artist. I previously had believed that there were limited avenues that you could go down professionally as an artist. I believed that my creative freedom would be limited and that I would be forced to convey other people's ideas, but I now know that that's not the case. There's so many different avenues that you can go down professionally with art, whether it be tattooing, whether it be creating NFTs, whether it be just simply making prints for people to enjoy in your own style. There's so many different ways to express your creativity, and you don't have to fit into a certain mold. A challenging part of the creative process is I'm actually limited on the amount of time that I'm able to create artwork because I have a full-time job during the day. So oftentimes I'll start a project feeling a particular way, sad or excited, happy, angry, and then when I go to finish the project, I don't actually have the same emotions. So oftentimes you can see an array of different emotions in particular projects. When I feel stuck on a project, I have to put it down and come back to it. If your heart and your body and your mind aren't all aligned on the same page when you're creating artwork, it's not going to turn out the way you like it. You're going to feel discouraged in the process, so you need to take a pause, put the pen down, and come back to it when you can. I think a really cool part about that is for my own personal artwork, I can start a project feeling upset and sad and unhappy, and then I'll come back to it later and I'm in a better mood and I feel happy and I'm feeling excited. So the expressions on the person's face may translate to being sad, but the colors around it will emphasize being happy and excited and bubbly. So I think that's a really creative and cool thing to see. What keeps me making art is the exact same reason that I started making art. It was a coping mechanism for me and a stress relief, and it continues to do so for me currently. Another great thing about art and what keeps me making art is the ability to express myself creatively. I don't have a lot of other ways of expressing myself in a creative way, so I think putting my emotions on paper and being able to share them with people is a great thing. I know when my projects are finished is when I'm at a point where I can be satisfied with them. I've taken a great piece of advice from Bob Ross, who says that dissatisfaction is one of the best qualities that you can have as an artist because it always leaves you room for improvement. If you're constantly satisfied with what you're doing, you're never going to grow because you're always in a sense of thinking that you're perfect. So I know when my projects are finished is when I don't quite hate them as much as I did before. Never compare yourself to another artist. You have to practice in order to become the best version of yourself. You have to keep going at it, practice whenever you can. If you can't find the time, make the time. And in terms of comparing yourself to other artists, there's always going to be somebody better than you, and there's always going to be somebody that's worse than you. A nice thing about art is that it's up to the person that's viewing it to decide whether they like it or whether they don't like it. It's not necessarily about your skill set, it's about your creativity. And if you're putting all of your creativity into a piece, that's going to translate to whoever is looking at it. You can get prints of my artwork by contacting me on Facebook or on Instagram at Bored in the Morgue, and I can ship anywhere worldwide.